So you're sitting on the couch together and your partner's phone starts to buzz. And instinctively, when they pick it up to check, they turn the phone away from you. In that split second, your brain has to make a decision. Is this a healthy boundary or is this a hidden threat? I am Michaelia Daubon, and this is my husband, Andrew Daubon, the author of the book Marriage, a Love Seat for Two. And today's topic is transparency and autonomy. Hello, Bishop Babe.
Hey baby, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I am good. This is quite a topic you're raising today. And let's go right to the question. Now, the answer to that really depends on the health of the relationship. In a relationship where the relationship is healthy, this issue of autonomy is not a problem. Trust is not a problem. And so for the person to pick up the phone and lean away, it could mean that it's a call, maybe relative to work, maybe relative to something that really has nothing to do with you as a couple. And so in that sense, the person sitting on the couch is not really worried because trust is not an issue in the relationship. And so really, when we look at this particular scenario, we are looking at the situation of safety versus autonomy. The person who is left on the couch, they are troubled only because they are concerned about their safety, the safety of the relationship. They are concerned about what they don't know and whether what they don't know is going to impact them in some kind of a significant way. Now, the other person who leaned away or stepped away did so, and they may be concerned about their autonomy, being able to do things where they don't feel like they are being watched or surveilled all the time. So the two issues really are safety versus autonomy. And when you look at it, it's really a manifestation of fear whenever this situation becomes a troubling situation, where one person may say, well, I don't need to tell you who I'm talking to on the phone. You need to trust me. When the other person is saying, well, if you had given me or if you had a track record where I could trust you, then this would not be an issue. So both persons are dealing with the emotion of fear. The person with the safety concern, they are fearful that what they don't know may hurt them. And then the other person who is resisting and withholding, they're saying that my autonomy is important to me, and they're fearful of losing that autonomy because the autonomy gives you a sense of personhood. So this is really the situation before us today. And there is a thought that says a marriage is strongest when transparency protects the relationship and privacy protects the individual. A marriage is strongest when transparency protects the relationship and the privacy protects the individual. So looking at the issue of transparency, it really says I have nothing to hide. But there is also the need and when we go down the road of privacy, many times people think, well, they are in a corner, they're in a room doing something that is going to impact our relationship in a negative way. Privacy in this sense is simply just have the ability to do things on your own, to think your own thought, to engage your own self, even in your prayers, your personal prayers with God, and so on and so forth. That's really what privacy comes down to. It's not so much engaging in activities that are going to be negatively affecting the relationship, but really developing the person. Because at the end of the day, we are still individuals, even though the two have married and they are become one. It really is important that we don't lose ourselves in the process. So we are looking at the fear of losing my relationship or the fear of losing my autonomy. And so both parties are really trying to protect something. One is trying to protect the relationship, the other person is trying to protect their personhood. At the end of the day, both are important. And it is really important that the two are on the same page.
Yeah, I'm happy you clarified the bit about privacy and bringing home the fact of being able to pray and not necessarily having to share all the details of what you prayed about as a part of what privacy can look like within a marriage. Because, some would say, well, if two have become one, then there's no space there for privacy. But when you explain it this way, it helps us to recognize those parameters.
All right. Well, since you went down the road of two becoming one, that's in reference to Genesis 2:24-25, where in verse 25 it says, the man and his wife, they were both naked and unashamed. And of course, Genesis 2:24-25 provides us the first model of marriage, what marriage should look like. And actually, it really is the foundation for my book, Marriage, a Love Seed for Two. But let's talk about that issue of oneness and how to still have your autonomy, even though the two of you are one. Now, yes, it is without a doubt that when the two are married, the Bible says the two become one flesh. And therefore, it is important then that if you are one flesh, that you're sharing all the important things that's relative to both of you, that those things are being shared. And even if they're not being shared, we all have access. That's the other thing. We all need to have access to whatever is going on. Now, as we're talking about this, the issue of the cell phone, the issue of social media, should my wife have the credentials to my cell phone, unlocking my cell phone and my social media? I say, for us, that's never been an issue.
Been a question.
If she needs my phone, well, I think you do have the code for my phone, correct?
Yes.
All right. I wrote hers down somewhere, but the issue of trust really hasn't been an issue. And so what is mine is hers, and what is hers is mine. But we recognize the importance of being individuals. We recognize the importance of loving each other enough to give the other the space to develop who they are and to maximize who God has made them to be.
Yes.
So one then therefore has to have that level of not just trust, but settledness with your own self, knowing that you are enough for your partner and your partner is enough for you. And thereby you're able to give each other the necessary space so that you can flourish and grow and thrive. The other thing that we find as we're looking at the one flesh, many people look at it from the extreme of surveillance, but there's another side to this that we find in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 9 and 10, deliberately allowing you to go check it out for yourself. But the essence of that is that it says two people sewing together or working together, the return on their investment is greater. It talks about if one of them falls, then the other will be able to pick the one that fell down up. But if you're by yourself and you fall by yourself, there's nobody to pick you up. So the two becoming one and having that level of transparency between you, it is actually a tool of protection. Because sometimes I may be engaged in something and there's something there in my blind spot. But if I'm doing it by myself, away to myself, and my spouse has no access to what I'm doing, then I may very well be doing something that is going to endanger myself as an individual and us as a couple. So the transparency there is necessary. Being two together and becoming one, it allows us to have perspective and enough information to make the best decision. So earlier, my wife and I, we were talking about this particular issue, about the importance of just having your autonomy, yet making room for transparency. And do you care to tell us the biblical reference that you went through? She's a theologian in this couple, so we go to the theologian right now.
Whatever. The thing that came to mind as we talked about this was what happened with Adam and Eve in the garden. So here it is, they are naked and unashamed. There's supposed to be transparency, and we don't see a whole much with privacy. From my own, I'm going to call it sanctified imagination, because I don't know if anybody has really looked at it from this angle. But if we think about it, if there was transparency between Adam and Eve, this conversation that she had with the serpent, to the point where he's beguiled her to do something that she's done, and then after the fact is now kind of sharing with Adam. If there was transparency there, then Adam would have been involved and aware of what was going on. And even though she had the autonomy to have that conversation with this serpent, because there's transparency there, Adam would have, in my own imagination, would have been able to say, hey, this is what God said. So even though you weren't there when he said it, he told me. Right? He told Adam, God told Adam. But if there was transparency there between the two of them about the whole thing, then Eve would have known, right? So even before we get to Eve, if Adam was transparent about the things that God told him to do, then Eve would be aware that don't entertain this serpent.
Yes.
Right? So we can see there how autonomy on its own in the midst of a marriage, if there is no transparency, can also create challenges.
Yes. So Eve went ahead and made a decision by herself, not having all the information.
Right.
And if she had consulted with Adam, even though she had autonomy, if she was transparent to Adam about what is being mentioned and the decision she was considering, picking the fruit and eating from the tree, if she had mentioned that to Adam, then Adam would have had an opportunity to convince her otherwise, and the outcome would have been completely different. So, brothers and sisters, from the very beginning, our first parents, as it were, showed us, whether deliberately or not, by their life, why autonomy is important, but transparency with autonomy is also critically important. And so as we close out this segment, the thing I'd like for us to go away with are really two questions. We must ask ourselves when you're in a place of autonomy and we want to find out whether this is something worth sharing or whether this is something worth opening up to my partner. We have two questions. The first question is an impact question. Will withholding this information impact my partner's sense of safety or their ability to make informed decision? That's the impact question. I'll say it again. Will withholding this information, this plan that I am about, will it impact my partner's sense of safety or their ability to make informed decision? Then we have the ownership question. And this goes now to the autonomy side of the equation. And the question now is this about me or is this about us? And of course, both of these questions require a measure of honesty. We've got to be completely honest and as objective as we can, because we can argue that something is about us alone, but in fact, it really is about both of us.
Right. So if we take this story that we're looking at, Eve's individual decision impacted not just her, but it impacted Adam and the rest of us.
Yes.
But also ladies, not leaving you out there. But also, Adam's decision not to share the information that he got from God didn't just impact him, it impacted Eve. Because now she didn't have all the information that she needed in order to make that decision. So you can see how both persons they were impacted by each other's way of handling the situation.
All right. So I see where we just opened up Pandora's box, because I hear the debates on both sides. It can be said, it can be inferred from the text that Eve had some knowledge of what to do and what not to do. As to whether or not she had the full knowledge, based on the enemy's or the devil's ability to beguile her or to cause her to doubt what was said, it can be argued that she did not get it fully from Adam as she should have. But either way the story goes, we're seeing the situation where, being autonomous, we should never neglect the necessity of transparency.
Yes.
Because when the two become one, what impacts one may very well impact the other one, if it is an impact question. If it's an ownership question where it now becomes, is this about me or is it about us? And examples of that, is it about me, like a hobby? A hobby is about me. However, finances is about us. So we really have to drill down to see whether the issue is really about individuals or is it about the couple. And if it's about the couple, then we have to speak about it. So my brothers and my sisters, the goal is to ensure that we are not hiding anything that endanger us as a couple. We're not withholding anything that endangers us as a couple. And once we abide by these simple instructions, simple rules, we will likely get through much of our issues. And the next time the phone rings, and our spouse turn to the left or turn to the right, because we know that they have the information about autonomy and transparency, and we are trusting that they're going to make the best decision for both of us, then we will relax and we won't get worked up about it. All right, so we're hoping that this, if nothing else, it stimulates conversation between you and your significant other, and we look forward to see you in the next one.
Bye.